What happens when the daughter of one of the most powerful senators in the United States decides that traffic laws and human lives are nothing more than optional guidelines? What happens when a dedicated nurse loses everything in a single instant because of someone else's recklessness, only to have the person responsible laugh in her face? We all know Judge Frank Caprio. We know him for his kindness, his empathy, and his gift for seeing the humanity in every person who stands before his bench. We tune in to watch him forgive a struggling mother's parking ticket or help a young student find a better path. We watch because we want to believe the system works. We want to believe that in Providence, Rhode Island, justice is truly blind. But today brings you a story that will completely shatter that belief. This is not a story of redemption. This is not a feel-good moment that leaves you wiping away happy tears. This is the story of Isabella Vance, a 24-year-old socialite who walked into Judge Caprio's courtroom wearing a dress worth more than the victim's yearly income, utterly confident that her father's power would crush the law. And the most terrifying part is this: she was right. The events you are about to hear unfolded just last week, and the footage has mysteriously vanished from official channels, but witnesses were there. We know exactly what happened. And trust me, by the end of this video, you won't just be angry. You will be furious. But before we expose the corruption that unfolded inside that courtroom, ask yourself one thing. If you destroyed someone's life, could your daddy make the judge disappear? Probably not. But for the Vance family, it was just another Tuesday. If you are sick of a two-tier justice system, one for the wealthy and one for everyone else, hit that subscribe button and like this video right now. We need to spread this story before they try to silence us too. It was a Tuesday night, with heavy rain pouring down in Providence. Sarah Jenkins, a 34-year-old single mother and ICU nurse, was driving home after a brutal 12-hour shift. Sarah isn't rich. She drove a battered 2014 Honda Civic. She works in the trauma unit, saving lives every day, often holding the hands of people as they take their final breaths. She is the backbone of society. At 11:15 p.m., Sarah was stopped at a red light on Broad Street, thinking about getting home to her 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Without warning, a flash of metallic blue tore through the intersection. It was a customized Porsche Panamera traveling nearly 70 miles per hour in a 30-mile zone. The driver never even touched the brakes. The Porsche smashed into the driver's side of Sarah's Honda with the force of an explosion. Witnesses say the sound was horrifying: metal shrieking, glass exploding, and the sickening crunch of the frame collapsing. Sarah's car spun violently across the intersection before slamming into a light pole, and in any normal world, the driver responsible would rush to help. But the driver was Isabella Vance. Witnesses reported that Isabella staggered out of her vehicle without a scratch, protected by top-tier German engineering and curtain airbags. She wasn't worried. She wasn't calling 911. Instead, she was screaming into her phone, "Daddy, the car is destroyed. You have to fix this. Some idiot was in my way." She never checked on Sarah, who was trapped inside the twisted wreckage, bleeding from a head wound, terrified she would never see her daughter again. When police arrived, they found Isabella leaning against her wrecked Porsche, vaping. When an officer approached to administer a breathalyzer, she allegedly laughed and said, "Do you have any idea who my father is? If you put that tube near my mouth, you'll be directing traffic in a school zone by tomorrow." The officer, a rookie unfamiliar with the political power in play, arrested her anyway. She was charged with reckless driving, excessive speed, destruction of property, and suspicion of DUI. Even though she refused the test, Sarah Jenkins was rushed to the hospital, the same hospital where she works. She suffered a fractured collarbone, severe whiplash, and a concussion that left her unable to work for weeks. Her car, her only way to get to work and take her daughter to school, was completely totaled. Fast forward to yesterday morning. The Providence Municipal Court is buzzing. Normally, it's filled with traffic tickets and small disputes, but today the atmosphere is tense. Reporters lined the back of the courtroom. Why? Because word spread that Senator Marcus Vance's daughter was on the docket. Senator Vance is a man who negotiates international trade deals, a man who dines with presidents. He is the very definition of untouchable. But everyone knows Judge Frank Caprio doesn't care about titles, he cares about people. Locals whispered among themselves. Frankie's going to go hard on her. He's going to teach this spoiled brat a lesson. At exactly 9 a.m., Judge Caprio takes the bench. He looks exhausted. He adjusts his glasses, scans the packed courtroom, and pauses. He knows this won't be a normal day. "Call the case," he says, his voice calm and steady. "The City of Providence versus Isabella Marie Vance," the bailiff announces. Isabella enters, and the audacity is staggering. She isn't dressed appropriately for court. She's wearing oversized designer sunglasses indoors, a cropped blazer, and she's loudly chewing gum. She doesn't walk to the podium, she struts. Behind her isn't a public defender, but Sterling Thorne, a high-powered attorney from Washington, D.C., whose suits cost more than Judge Caprio's car. On the opposite side of the aisle sits Sarah Jenkins. She looks small. She's wearing a neck brace. Her arm is in a sling. She looks terrified, trembling slightly. She knows she's a mouse standing before a viper. Judge Caprio looks down at the file, then up at Isabella. "Ms. Vance," Caprio says, his voice quiet but firm. "Remove your sunglasses in my courtroom." Isabella pauses, sighs dramatically, and slides them down her nose to peer over them. "The lighting in here is awful, Your Honor. It gives me migraines." "Remove them," Caprio snaps. The warmth usually found in his eyes is gone. He knows exactly who he's dealing with. Isabella removes them, rolls her eyes, and drops them onto the defense table with a loud clatter. "You are charged with reckless driving resulting in injury, excessive speeding, and failure to exercise due care. I have the police report here stating that you were verbally abusive to the arresting officer and refused a field sobriety test. How do you plead?" Sterling Thorne steps forward, smooth as silk. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty, and we move for immediate dismissal due to procedural irregularities." Judge Caprio raises a hand. "Counselor, save your motions. I want to hear from your client. Ms. Vance, were you driving the vehicle?" Isabella examines her nails. "I was driving, yes. But that woman," she points a perfectly manicured finger at Sarah, "came out of nowhere. Honestly, she shouldn't even be on the road in a car that old. It's a safety risk." The courtroom gasps. Judge Caprio stiffens. You can see his jaw tighten. This is usually the moment meant for a lesson. "Ms. Vance," Caprio says, leaning forward. "That old car belonged to Ms. Jenkins, a trauma nurse who spends her nights saving lives while you're out doing whatever it is you do. Do you have any idea the damage you've caused?" Isabella shrugs. "Insurance will take care of it. That's why it exists, right? I don't understand why I had to wake up this early over a fender bender." "A fender bender?" Caprio repeats, stunned. "Ms. Jenkins, would you please step forward?" Sarah Jenkins rises slowly, wincing as her injured shoulder shifts. She walks toward the microphone, shaking. "Ms. Jenkins," Caprio says, his voice instantly gentle. "Please tell the court what happened." Sarah inhales deeply, holding back tears. "Your Honor, I was stopped at a red light. I wasn't moving. I was just thinking about getting home to my daughter. Then everything exploded. I couldn't breathe. The doors were crushed. I had to crawl out through broken glass." She pauses, glancing at Isabella, who is scrolling on her phone beneath the table. "I'm a single mom, Your Honor," Sarah continues, her voice cracking. "I live paycheck to paycheck. That car was paid off. It was all I had. Now I can't work because of my injuries. I can't lift patients. I haven't been paid in 2 weeks. I don't know how I'll pay rent next month." And while I was bleeding on the pavement, she was screaming about her paint job. Sarah breaks down. "She didn't even look at me. She stepped over me to check her bumper." The courtroom is completely silent. Even the bailiffs look furious. This is the heart of the moment, where empathy usually prevails. Judge Caprio removes his glasses and looks at Sarah with deep sorrow. "Ms. Jenkins, I am so sorry. I am truly sorry you endured this." He turns slowly toward Isabella, his stare razor-sharp. "Ms. Vance, you've heard the victim. You've heard the devastation you caused. Do you have anything to say to her?" Isabella looks Sarah up and down with open contempt. "Look," she says flatly, "I'm sorry your car was a piece of junk. My dad's assistant can probably cut you a check for a few $1,000s if it'll stop the crying. This is really unprofessional." Judge Caprio slams his hand down. "Enough." The crack echoes through the room. "Young lady, in 30 years on this bench, I've seen arrogance. I've seen entitlement. But I have never seen heartlessness like this. You believe money can repair a shattered human life. You believe your father's power makes you superior to the woman beside you." Isabella smirks, cold and chilling. "Well, Judge, isn't that how the world works? Not in this courtroom, Caprio says, his voice trembling with controlled fury. Here, you are just a citizen who broke the law. You endangered the public. You harmed an innocent woman. He pulls the file closer. I deny your attorney's motion for dismissal. I find you guilty on all charges. I will impose the maximum penalty allowed by this court. He looks out at the gallery. A message must be sent. Wealth is not a shield. Ms. Vance, I sentence you to 6 months in the adult correctional institutions, suspended upon completion of 500 hours of community service in the trauma unit where Ms. Jenkins works, so you may see the consequences of reckless behavior. Your license is suspended for 2 years, and you are ordered to pay restitution to Ms. Jenkins in the amount of $15,000 for her vehicle and lost wages, effective immediately. Applause erupts. Justice, finally. The privileged girl will scrub floors and pay the price. Sarah exhales in relief, wiping her tears, then the doors at the back of the courtroom swing open. Not normally, forced wide by 2 men in dark suits with earpieces. Silence crashes down. The clapping stops. Walking down the center aisle is Senator Marcus Vance. Tall, perfectly dressed, silver-haired, wearing a smile that never reaches his eyes. He radiates power. He doesn't look like a worried father. He looks like he owns the room. He doesn't stop at the railing. He walks straight through the gate, ignoring the bailiff, Senator Vance, Judge Caprio says, startled. You cannot enter the well of the court. Judge Caprio, Vance replies smoothly, his voice booming like a broadcast announcer. Good to see you again. I apologize for the interruption, but there's been a misunderstanding regarding these proceedings. Isabella smiles, the smile of someone who knows the trap has closed. Hi, Daddy, she chirps. Judge Caprio puts his glasses back on. There is no misunderstanding. Your daughter has been found guilty of reckless driving and assault. Sentence has been imposed. Senator Vance chuckles, dismissive. He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a thick envelope stamped with a federal seal. Frank, I respect what you do here. It's charming. Good local television. But you're a municipal judge. You handle parking tickets and noise complaints. He tosses the envelope onto the bench. It lands with a heavy thud. What is this? Caprio asks. That, Vance says, adjusting his cufflinks, is a federal jurisdiction transfer. The vehicle my daughter was driving is registered to my diplomatic security detail. Technically, it's a federal government vehicle. He leans closer, lowering his voice, though every microphone captures it. Under the Federal Tort Claims Act and specific diplomatic immunity clauses tied to my current assignment on the Foreign Relations Committee, this is no municipal matter. It is a matter of national security. The gallery murmurs in disbelief. Sarah Jenkins looks at her. The lawyer who has gone pale. National security? Caprio asks, his voice rising. Senator, she T-boned a nurse on Broad Street while speeding. This is not national security. This is a crime. Vance's smile disappears. His face hardens into stone. It is a federal matter now, Judge, which means it is no longer in your hands. Judge Caprio immediately opens the envelope. He scans the document. His hands begin to tremble, not with fear, but with rage. He studies the seal. He studies the signatures. It's airtight. A loophole as wide as a highway, built specifically for families like the Vances. This is an abuse of power, Caprio whispers. It's the law, Vance replies coldly. And you're a judge. You follow the law, don't you, Frank? Isabella stands, smoothing her dress, grabbing her sunglasses. Can we go now, Dad? I have a brunch reservation at 11. Sarah Jenkins stands up, panic flooding her face. Wait, what does this mean? What about my car? What about my medical bills? Senator Vance turns toward Sarah. There is no sympathy in his eyes, only irritation, like she's dirt on his shoe. Ms. Jenkins, Vance says dismissively. You'll be contacted by our federal attorneys. I wouldn't hold my breath. Filing a claim against a federal diplomatic vehicle can take years. And frankly, looking at your driving record, we may countersue for the damage to the Porsche. Countersue? Sarah gasps. She hit me. Prove it in federal court, Vance says. If you can afford the lawyers, which, judging by your outfit, you can't. The cruelty is so sharp, so unnecessary, that the courtroom gasps. Judge Caprio rises to his feet. Senator, you cannot do this. You cannot walk into my courtroom and mock a victim. Vance turns his back on the judge. I just did. Come along, Isabella. Case dismissed for lack of jurisdiction, Sterling Thorne announces smugly, snapping his briefcase shut. Judge Caprio sinks back into his chair. He looks again at the document. He looks at the bailiff. He looks at the cameras. Caprio begins, but the words won't come. Isabella walks past Sarah and leans in close, low enough that only Sarah should hear, though the boom mic catches it. You should have just moved, sweetie. Next time, know your place. Isabella laughs, linking arms with her father as they walk down the center aisle, surrounded by bodyguards. The cameras follow them. They look like royalty. They look victorious. Sarah Jenkins collapses back into her chair, burying her face in her uninjured hand, sobbing uncontrollably. She has lost everything. No car. Mounting medical bills. And the woman responsible is headed to brunch. Judge Caprio looks at Sarah, something rarely seen in that courtroom. For the first time, he looks helpless. He has no next step. No redemption fund. No power that can fight the U.S. government and a corrupt senator. Ms. Jenkins, Caprio says quietly. The room falls silent. I want to apologize, not on their behalf. They have no conscience. I want to apologize on behalf of the system. Today, the system failed you. I failed you. Sarah looks up, tears streaming. What am I supposed to do, Judge? Caprio slowly shakes his head. I don't know. The feed cuts there, but the story doesn't end. As the Vances exit the courthouse, reporters swarm them. Senator Vance simply says justice was served and calls it a frivolous case against a young woman with a bright future. Later that day, Isabella posts an Instagram selfie holding a mimosa, caption unbothered #untouchable. Meanwhile, Sarah Jenkins takes an Uber home, spending the last $20 in her wallet. She starts a GoFundMe, but without viral momentum, it barely raises $500. She's now facing eviction because she can't work her hospital shifts. This isn't just a story. It's a warning. We like to believe that in America, no one is above the law. We like to believe that if you hurt someone, you pay the price. We like to believe judges like Frank Caprio are the final authority in their courtrooms. But today, we learned the truth. There is a level of power that doesn't care about justice. There is a level of wealth that treats people like Sarah Jenkins as collateral damage. Judge Caprio did everything he could. He tried to be the voice of reason. He tried to protect the little guy. But even he couldn't stop the machine, and that should make your blood boil. Compare the two fathers in these stories. In the story we love, the police chief chose integrity. He let his son face consequences because he wanted him to be a good man. In this story, Senator Vance chose corruption. He chose to shield his daughter's worst instincts, teaching her she can hurt anyone as long as daddy cleans it up. Who do you think Isabella Vance will become? What happens the next time she gets behind the wheel? Who will be the next Sarah Jenkins? It could be you. It could be your mother. It could be your child. This story has a dark ending because real life often does. But we can change the narrative. We can make sure families like the Vances know we are watching. Do 3 things right now. Share this video everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. Send it to your local news outlets. Make Isabella's name famous for the wrong reasons. Comment below, justice for Sarah. Flood the algorithm. Tell me, have you ever seen the rich walk free for something you'd go to jail for? Subscribe, because we're following this story. We're going to find Sarah Jenkins and try to do what the court couldn't. Judge Caprio may have been silenced by a legal loophole, but the court of public opinion is now in session and the verdict is up to you. Don't let them get away with it.